Skye encounters a supernatural warrior who doesn't know that no means no. If that sounds creepy, it kind of is, but not in the way you think. We're going to talk about it in our review of Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, Number 82 from Zenescope. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, Number 82 from Zenescope. And in this issue, we conclude the three-part adventure that teams up Skye and Mystere when Skye has to fight to keep her body away from a soul-stealing warrior. It sounds weird. It will make sense of it. Don't worry about it. But before we get into it, let's talk about the credits. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, Number 82 from Zenescope Entertainment. And this issue concludes the three-part arc teaming up Skye and Mystere, where Skye now has to fight to keep her body away from a soul-stealing warrior. It sounds creepy. It is creepy, but not in the way you think. Before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. Make sure to stay through the end for the final score. Talk about the credits. Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, Number 82 is written by Dave Franchini, art by Babasu Cortez, colors by Jorge Cortez, letters by Taylor Esposito, and the main cover A, is drawn by Igor Vitorino. Let's recap what happened in the previous issue before we talk about what happens next, just real quick. So in the previous issue, the Congregation of the Dead is making plans to somehow take over the earth by building out an army of stolen souls and turning them into these sort of shadow demon warriors. When Skye and Mystere went to a supposedly haunted house in Gettysburg where some of the energy that they detected is more pronounced, they were captured by the Congregation of the Dead in spirit form, mainly through the warriors of the congregation known as Reap and Sow. Sorry, stumbled over my words a little bit. Reap and Sow. So they stole them, brought them before the Council of the Congregation of the Dead, and they were told, okay, we have plans for you. You're either going to come with us and do our bidding, or you're done for. Mystere was taken into another room to kind of await her final sentence, and in this issue, we'll talk about what happens there. But meanwhile, Skye's soul is pulled out of her body, and they're saying that body has a lot of magical power, and you are not worthy of it because you're not using it to meet our ends and not meet our needs. Here is one of our highest ranked warriors, and the two of you now have to fight. If you win, you get your body back. If you don't win, he's going to take your body. It sounds gross and creepy. It kind of is, but we'll see how it follows up in this issue. Now we pick up in the current issue, Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, Number 82. Mystere fights the warrior whose name is Fernando Domingue, otherwise known as Ugon, and they fight to the death to try and get their to fight for the ownership of Skye's body, which, yeah, it sounds creepy. I'm sorry. I know it sounds creepy, but it's creepy. Meanwhile, while Skye is doing battle with Ugon, Mystere is waiting in another room to find out what the final verdict of the Congregation of the Dead is all about. She is visited by Ianasa, who is Reap and Sow's boss, effectively. And Ianasa says, I'm not sure the congregation knows what it's doing. She lays it out that over the course of the past year, when all the Zenescope titles have been going through this multi-title adventure to stop Cthulhu from being released from his Arctic prison, or Antarctic prison, I should say. Yep, that the Congregation of the Dead, who had been there for centuries upon centuries and since the beginning of time, thought they were in control of life and death and knew who should go and who should stay and all the things that are related to the affairs of crossing over from one direction or the other. By through the course of the year of Lovecraft, we'll call it, where the Zenescope heroes had to do battle to stop Cthulhu from taking over the world, the Congregation of the Dead realized they're really not in as much control as they thought they were, and that if somebody like Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep or all the Lovecraftian horrors could take over the world and then subjugate all of humanity, then the Congregation of the Dead doesn't have as much power as it thought it did. And they need to arm up and start taking more aggressive matters under control. And so this whole three-part adventure is just a precursor to the congregation's desire to create an army to defend humanity, whether it likes it or not, against otherworldly threats, and then also to take a more aggressive stance in pushing humanity in certain directions, whether humanity wants it or not. And so you've got sort of a protective fascist regime going on, if you want to look at it that way. However, Ianasa, who is the boss of Reap and Sow, now believes that maybe the congregation doesn't quite have its act together and there is dissension among the leadership. And so in a last bid move, Ianasa interrupts the fight between Ugon and Skye and puts Ugon in Skye's body, and then simultaneously summons her shadow demons and Reap and Sow to attack the Congregation of the Dead, the High Council. And then she takes over the Congregation of the Dead as the new boss. Meanwhile, Mystere is freed up with Ianasa's help, because she's like, you're either going to be with me or against me. Take some time to think about it, but don't think too long. Mystere comes into the Colosseum area where Skye has now been defeated, or I should say where Ianasa defeated Skye to allow Ugon to take her body. Mystere comes in at the last minute to then release Ugon from Skye's body and put Skye back in her own body. But while that all is happening, Skye accidentally gets sucked into Mystere's body, so the two souls are cohabitating. It makes for a kind of a weird fight because they're not used to operating each other and trying to operate in the same body, and powers are going off and all kinds of weird things are happening. So it gets very awkward and weird and uncomfortable. In other words, from a body autonomy perspective, this entire issue is weird and uncomfortable. But there it goes. So the end result is Ianasa takes over the council, the High Council of the Congregation of the Dead. Skye's back in her body. Mystere and Skye get sent back to the physical world with the promise that Ianasa might come a calling later to draft Mystere into whatever plan she has for humanity. And the original plans of the Congregation of the Dead and the High Council are all now kaput. And there it is for now. Well, so there's a lot happening there. But what's interesting about this story, which wasn't clear from the very beginning, is that it felt like this story was taking a pause from the Year of Lovecraft, which effectively ended once they stopped Cthulhu's release from his frozen prison, but maybe had to continue with a part 2 from some other stuff that was going on. It felt like a pause, but now this series actually this 3-part adventure now actually ties back into what was going on with Lovecraft as sort of a side effect or a consequence of the Year of Lovecraft. So that makes it a little bit more interesting, makes it the whole universe a little bit more cohesive. It doesn't make this story feel like it just sort of came out of nowhere, which the first 2 issues gave you that impression. So what do we like and not like? What do we like about Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 82? Lots of action, lots of weird developments insofar as establishing the Congregation of the Dead as a formidable force that's working behind the scenes to have control over humanity. And the last minute tie-in that kind of through exposition you learn that this issue ties into the year of, and actually a year and a half now at this point, Year of Lovecraft, makes it a little bit more cohesive in the broader Zenescope titles. So that's a big positive. On the downside, yeah, there's a lot of weird kind of creepy, ooky body autonomy stuff going on, where Skye's repeatedly saying, no, don't touch my body. And Ugon's like, I'm taking your body whether you like it or not. You get I hate to say it, you kind of get a rapey feel about it, which is uncomfortably weird and ooky. And then when Skye's soul actually accidentally gets sucked into Mystere's body, and the two of them are fighting out to like who's going to control Mystere's body, that ookiness sort of escalates a little bit and weird. I don't think it was intended to be gross. It kind of comes off gross. And so I don't think anybody wants that out of a Grimm Fairy Tales comic, but you sort of get that here, and I don't think it was intentional either, but you sort of get that impression. What about the art? This is one of the better examples of art from Babasu Cortez. He's had some problems with ink cleanliness, if I could put it that way. Sometimes his lines get too rough, too sketchy, too sloppy. Just to be frank, this is one of the better examples of his art. He's definitely cleaned up his act a little bit. He's cleaned up a lot on, particularly with hair. Hair has always been a problem for Cortez, and the hair is not great, but it looks better. There's lots of action, lots of supernatural goings on in this issue, and as a general rule, it looks pretty good. Not the best not the best, I should say, not the best Zenescope comic we've ever seen, but this is significant. Cortus is significantly improving. The hair in particular has always been kind of like sloppy, ratty, greasy, nasty. Looks better here, much better. So that's an improvement. I know it sounds like you're picking on it, but when you see it, if you've been reading Grimm for a while, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Final thoughts. What do we think about Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 82 from Zenescope? Lots of great action, interesting developments, nice tie into the cohesiveness of the greater Zenescope titles of comics, and just generally speaking, a solid ending. Not the best, but a solid ending. Didn't we like there was a lot of weird body autonomy stuff going on that felt uncomfortable in a weird kind of way, and so folks that might feel triggered or otherwise put off by no not being listened to. When a woman says no, she's not taken seriously, might feel slightly awkward or uncomfortable with this issue. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed this review. Therefore, we're going to give Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 82 from Zenescope a solid 8 out of 10. We're going to do it an 8 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you like more reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.